I wouldn't call 2019 a banner year for the horror film. In fact, I wouldn't even say it's a particularly good year compared to recent ones. Last week, I tried to watch albino sharks eat swimmers. Tried, but I couldn't see anything on screen. That's why this week's trip to the movie theater was such a pleasant surprise. Not only could I see what was happening on screen, but I could also see what they were doing with their story. Ready or Not is a 2019 home invasion thriller. Unquestionably a horror film, unquestionably violent and gory, but it still had the time and had the wherewithal to actually tell a story that had meaning. I appreciate that. And you should too, because there's been too many empty exercises recently. And the emptier the horror genre gets, the more its reputation starts to fall. If we want to avoid another great horror drought like we experienced in the early 90s, we must make sure that the films that deserve our notice are financially and critically successful. Ready or Not is a class warfare exercise, and it accomplishes its goals in a clever and meaningful way that we can all relate to, but yet it never stops it from being a fun movie. Unlike other home invasion thrillers, this one takes the basic premise and turns it on its head. Yes, it is about a family defending their home from an invader. But in this case, the invader is a young woman marrying into the family, and she's been brought in with open arms. That said, when she fails to meet up to the family's standards, their traditions, well, she's got to go. Make no mistake, this is a film that uses a broad, improbable premise, much like the Saw or the Purge movies. But here, we're willing to go along with it, not so much because it's more believable than those films, because it's really not, but because the underpinnings of the story do resonate with us. We feel for Grace as she's trying to enter this ultra-rich family because she is an outsider. She recognizes herself as an outsider, and most importantly, she does not pretend to fit in. When we first meet her, she's detailing how strange the family is and how much they are coming at her rather than embracing her. Even Andy McDowell's character, who at first seems like a warm, inviting presence, is very quickly shown to be two-faced and untrustworthy. The difference between these characters is their financial status. One is an entitled, rich family who feels that their traditions have to be upheld because they superstitiously believe that any deviation from the traditional norms, such as allowing an unworthy lower-class woman into their house. They make a point of saying she's an orphan for a reason. Orphans do not traditionally come with money. They bring her into the family, they run the risk of losing everything they have. This is a very real concept in society, not just in America, but around the world, that you can dilute a money pool by bringing people who are not worthy into it. There's no shortage of in-laws who are critical of their new son-in-laws or daughter-in-laws if they don't have good jobs, if they didn't come from the right family, if they don't know the proper mannerisms at a dinner table. With this premise in place, we have to take a look at the underpinnings of what the movie is portraying as wealth. Because wealth is not necessarily just the lavish lifestyles, the full bookshelves, the extremely ornate furniture that you see in the film. What it is an almost omnipresent presence in the house. It is wealth as a supernatural being, as a ghost that lives among them. And it's a fickle ghost that they must, at all times, feed the hunger of. So it is not merely the custom of playing a game on a wedding night, but it's actually everyday minutia. It is having rooms that are set aside for music or for games. It is living the lifestyle that they feel is set out for them. This is all important to the family because, again, they live inside strict borders with a very superstitious view of wealth. They see how quickly the wealthy can fall, and that's what they fear the most. The backstory about a Mr. LaBelle giving them their start is really just a backstory. It's fairly irrelevant, but there is a lot of cool winking at the camera here for those audience members who decide to really dig a little bit deeper. LaBelle is, of course, an anagram for Belial, which is the name for the devil used in the Hebrew Bible. The hints are all there. The supernatural view of wealth is the source of all evil. It is the devil. And as the movie progresses, it makes it clear that trying to protect that money is really what's at stake here. The family's worrying about dying is really a code for worrying about financial collapse, where they'll become like regular people, like Grace. And her name is not a coincidence, because Grace is exactly what the family is missing. They seem poised and dignified in the beginning during the ceremony, but they decay over the course of the film into absolute savagery. So, is it a good film? Well, yeah, it's a really very good film, maybe one of the best of the year domestically released. It's not perfect. It's probably a little over long, could be tightened up. It's not a long film at all, but it does feel like the first half of it takes a little longer than it needs to get going. I'm not sure what they'd cut because all the scenes are good. Maybe just some tightening up of individual scene lengths. The acting across the board is pretty excellent, from a variety of different styles and even different generations of actors. It all works, though, and it doesn't disappoint on those levels. The bloodshed in the final act is going to be very satisfying to everyone who watches it. The film has a dour and almost cartoonish sense of humor at times, but that actually just helps make it obvious that we're talking about a metaphor and not a strictly realistic, grounded take on the subject. When by the end we get into absolute carnage and absolute fantasy, the film has earned its right to go full bore, dialed up to 11. I would give Ready or Not a 3.5 stars out of 5. Now, that makes it one of the better films that's been released in the last couple of years in the horror genre. It's not perfect, and it's not a film I'm probably going to revisit often, but I would say that it's definitely worth your while to support this, because this means something. This has more going on than most of what has come out in the last few years. One final thought before I go. It's commonly thought that exploitation films are really just attempts to cash in on whatever is in the zeitgeist that people are currently fascinated with, whether it's sex or violence, which are the evergreens of exploitation. But it can be anything, whether it's teen exploitation, black exploitation. There's always a movement afoot that can be exploited. Technology and the internet certainly have been recent ones. But this actually is interesting because this film wants to kind of attack extreme wealth and extreme greed at the same time that it's clearly exploiting our fears of extreme greed and wealth. There's certainly a time in our history where wealth, privilege, and power are constantly in the news. So this movie comes at the perfect time, and it has a perfectly balanced attitude towards it, in which the rich are portrayed in a negative light, but they're also a little bit sympathetic because you see that the greed and the privilege are the real villains here, not so much the family who are just chasing them. There's only a few characters that you cheer for their deaths outright until the final scene, when you cheer kind of just the carnage candy on screen more than any individual death. At any rate, you should see it, you should support it, and hopefully we'll get more like it in the future. Films that want to tell both a story and have substance. Given recent history, we shouldn't take it for granted that that will be the case, so please get out there.